don't have a lot of event spaces in this particular hotel. So, and the public events that I think we were talking about really shouldn't be our burden. Because, I mean, I understand that we're in the middle of the downtown. This will not be a public garage open to the public.
No, because you have parking for your.
For our, yeah, when I did any public events that I think we were talking about, is really not something that we're going to offer parking to. But
if I can, I think we can't ask them for more parking. They meet the code for parking. Parking is parking, and that's done. The traffic management plan is really dealing with how does the traffic drive around in the area, and the flow of the traffic, the hours of the operation, the hours of deliveries, that kind of thing, and that's what the traffic management thing. It's going to have no impact on the parking. If we want to require more parking, then we need to amend the site plan approval and require more parking with the site plan and say that we want more parking and we want a third story on the garage. And that we want to require them to exceed the code requirements, and that's a mixed bag. And that's the truth of the matter. The management plan with the conditional use is another issue. And it's not a parking issue, it's a flow issue. And it's a where do cars go, where do they turn, what's going on in the city. And I don't have that much heartache about it, but I think that it needs to get done. My concern is that if we require it to get done and you have a plan that gives you this information, I don't know at this point, when we have an approved site plan, how much additional modification we can do or tweaks we can do to the site plan, and where's your teeth at that
I
point?
think I have a solution, because I think the concern, if I'm correct, is mostly not that we're not going to have enough parking. I think you're worried that this will be the great success that we're hoping it will be, and that our parking somehow will overflow and impact the community. And I guess we can all hope that that's the case, because that's good news, I think. So I have a suggested condition that I think is certainly acceptable to this owner. And I've proffered this for the IPIC in Delray Beach because they had an equal concern, even though there, I don't think it's applicable. But here I don't either. But as a suggestion, something that is entirely legitimate, why don't we propose that 6 months from the date we open, we'll be required to provide the city with a parking study. What our parking is actually happening, and we can do it. We can work with them to suggest the peak times that we do it, so that we're not doing it on the slowest day of the week. But we can say we'll do it in season if that makes you more comfortable. And if there is a deficiency, then we will add that up or down.
Here's the thing. I think that's great for the parking, and I think that would be great condition to add. But I think that the traffic management plan that they're getting at is beyond that, and I don't know that you have the teeth in. If the traffic management plan shows that you need to widen or that you need, they pay impact fees. There's no.
They don't pay impact fees.
They don't know impact
The
fees.
impact fees they pay provide monies to expand the capacity and carrying load of county roads, which are none in Lake Worth, except for Federal Highway.
But there's no proportional share here because you're in a concurrency exemption area.
Right.
So there's no additional monies that go towards it. This is an urban area. The road structure is what it is.
And I think you've gone a little bit farther. We would like to know and have it in a document how the traffic is going to be managed in context of what we've got. We have what we have, but how do you plan to maneuver around it? The second piece is because of the interest from the neighbors.
But how do you maneuver? That's my question to you, is how do you give them, how do we give them criteria to maneuver? Is this valet requirements? Is this timing? When we get this information, what do we do with it then?
We will at least have documentation on how it's intended to work. Right now, the valet, you've got 2 drop-off points, access to the garage, questions that have come up from the public that I cannot answer. We don't know if when you get to the hotel and you drop your car off, where does the valet go from there? He's going to get to the garage, or she's going to get to the garage, but how do they do that? When it comes out of the garage, how does it get back to where the person's going to be picked up?
right.
If we have that spelled out, Then when I have a complaint from somebody, this is how it's supposed to be operating, and if it's not, we'll bring it to the attention of the owner. The second piece is not a requirement for additional parking, but how are they going to deal with, like, not public special events, but let's say you've got a bar mitzvah at the
Right.
nightclub on the
Absolutely.
top, a pool deck party,
Yeah.
and a wedding,
Yeah.
all on the same day. How do you deal with the traffic, the parking, and they have a plan, maybe they have a cross-access agreement with another location, they work out a deal with the city, whatever it is, we have at least stressed that when the parking exceeds what they're required to provide, we have a plan for it. Right
So
now.
you want a parking study, you want the parking study, what, the condition that Bonnie was mentioning, are you comfortable with that? A parking study and then a management plan to implement that, or what are you looking for tonight?
I just think, we're going into the weeds here
Yes.
to the extent that, you know, you're making the assumption that they don't know what they're doing and they don't know how to operate a hotel. A hotel of this.
I have a rule in Lake Worth, I assume nothing and thought that nothing happened when it hasn't happened. What I get caught in the weeds and my butt is on the line, is I've got the public wanting to know how this is gonna work, and I can tell them, I don't know, we're gonna have to trust somebody that they don't know.
Well,
And
usually, and it's not always the case, but normally, private business functions in a way that people come back to them. You know,
I mean, one
I
is
try to do
successful.
a good job, because if I don't, I'm not gonna have any work. So, you know, they're a hotel operator, you know, they're not going to plan all those events in a limited space if they can't park them. And if they can't, and if they do have an opportunity to do it, and they consider doing it, then they're gonna find some parking lot somewhere that they can pay and make special dispensation for, so that they won't have a lot of very annoyed guests. So, you know, it isn't the purview of government to get into the business of the business owners. It's the purview of government to see if we meet the requirements of the code, and we do. And I can promise you that I've been doing business with this gentleman long enough to know that he does everything first class. So he is not going to, or he's not going to intentionally fail, not on his accord, maybe because of others, but certainly not because of them. So I think that, I think it is entirely legitimate to be worried about whether we have enough parking in general. But as to whether we operate how we operate our business, I don't really think government should be going down there.
And I completely concur with you. I would feel like I wasn't doing my job on the board if I hadn't raised that question, because it just automatically popped up in my mind.
And I think Mr. Waters has his concern, because eventually, if something goes wrong, it's going to land on his doorstep.
And that is government.
Yes.
So you can say the government doesn't have a role, but at the end of the day, government has to have some regulation.
Bonnie,
So-
I'm more comfortable, I think I liked your condition, which was the parking study and the fresh look to see if the additional deck is required. And obviously that would have to be brought back to us with the site plan amendment, but I think that needs to happen.
Who's
Can I ask a question? If we're adding one additional deck with the same facade treatments and everything else, does it really need to come back to you? Because,
Yeah, it has to come back.
yeah,
Mhm.
Does it,
that's fine.
I mean, if we need to do it, I mean, you'll be down the line, if it's structurally set up to be able to add, you know.
It is being structurally designed.
who's choosing
So we won't be in a position that we.
who's choosing the person to do the traffic study?
They do, they have to have an engineer, it's fine.
Quick question on the design of the garage. We talked about having the very first level below grade, so as you are building.
On grade.
Yeah,
On
everything's
grade.
On grade?
On grade.
But there was some discussion of lowering the profile of the building by having the first level be below grade.
No,
No?
No. The,
Yes.
the advantage of what has happened with the removal of the retail space off the first floor has actually loosened up the design capabilities, or restrictions in a way of the parking garage, because we intentionally had to set, an extended first floor to floor to be able to accommodate that occupied space. Now that that's over with, we can literally go to a lower, kind of a compact floor to floor level okay, because we're not having to accommodate those spaces, so, you know, again, in a way.
With the structural part,
Yes.
the ability to add another level.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's gonna be, you know, regardless, so.
What you're saying is it's accurate, you don't have the same height requirement for the first level.
We don't have the same restrictions, I'll put it that way, so, you know, and obviously we make it as compact as possible, you know, for the traditional floor to floor, so that'll help. And make the proposed, if we had to go to another floor of parking.
It wouldn't be as high.
It wouldn't be as high,
Okay.
yeah.
So it'd have less impact on the neighborhood and give you more kind of
We're
bang for
talking
your
feet, but
And just as an added, your city staff did add recently to 2015 ordinance 2015-14, a requirement for valet parking permits. There's a whole series of things that we need to do and demonstrate, and there are restrictions and regulations on queuing and all that other fun stuff, so they do have
That's in the code. There are regulations in the code related to valet.
valet. And we are a valet operation, so this would apply to us, and there's a whole, it just went back, oh, there it is. I mean, I can read through it if you wish, but it's pretty.
No,
strict.
please don't. I do like the traffic management plan requirement. I think that needs to be done, and I think that it should include all the valet. And it should also include in the scope of the traffic management plan consideration of the operation during special events. At least it should be clear to the city what the impacts are going to be. I don't think there's a lot they can do with that information once they get it, but at least from a perspective, you know, public safety will know what they're dealing with, and whether you, depending on the level of uses, whether they want you to do any additional requirements as far as traffic or traffic direction, and those requirements. Hours of operation for the accessory uses, this was brought up by staff, and I'd like to hear from the applicant on their thoughts on the hours of operation with relation to accessory uses. And William, what was your thought on the hours of operation with the pool deck and?
Well, I just wanted to bring up that there were several comments made by the public. We do have a very generous noise ordinance. In downtown, the decibel level can go to 85 decibels until 11 p.m. and then it can be 65 thereafter. Our alcoholic beverage sales and consumption is limited until 2 a.m. We don't have necessarily on record what the hours of operation for any of the things that are outside might be. And I think it will behoove everyone to at least have it on record what the intention is. There's not a lot that we can do about it in the essence of saying you can't serve alcohol until 1 a.m., but having it on record what is anticipated to happen. And then there are pieces in our code that deal with chronic nuisance and nuisance activities that can be carried to you for recommendations to the special magistrate if those are consistently or frequently violated.
Well, there was testimony given by the adjacent condo, one of the adjacent condo residents with regards to the second story pool deck and the hours of operation there. And I'll throw out a number, 11 p.m. I mean, what are your thoughts or feelings with?
Well, what would that be restricting? I'm not clear.
Well, it was the outdoor activity of the pool deck activity.
Pool deck.
Because are you planning, because was there a bar and I'm sure you want to have some type of events or something there.
Normally most pools are closed at 10 p.m., but we might have a special occasion now or then, and you sometimes have problems just with residents who walk out there and are having a shack. So,
We don't have the final amending design yet, so it's hard to tell what time the pool deck, and what will occur in the pool deck, whether there will be events or not. It's difficult this time to set a standard, other than what any of the other restaurant or bar areas would have.
Yeah, you do have, yeah, you have the noise ordinance, so we have to comply with any decibel levels anyway.
Can we continue that, so they have a plan?
No, it's the conditional use. We'd have to put the conditions of approval within the conditional use tonight. So we'd have to provide the limit if we wanted to have a limit with regards to the pool deck operation.
Beth was just reading Sunday through Thursday after 11 to 4, 8 a.m. It's dropped to 65 and then it's 85 otherwise. Correct me if I'm wrong. 65 decibels is not very loud. So, I mean, you're not talking about a band or anything like that.
After 11.
That's at the property line.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that, unless staff has an additional recommendation on hours of operation.
Just so I don't get caught in this later, our restriction for decibel level when it's an industrial use next to residential is 55.
Industrial?
Yes.
Not industrial.
No, I'm just giving you, the noise ordinance has 3 components, and I get slammed with this all the time, is that the perception is that our noise level in downtown is very loud at 85. It's subsequently a little bit less at 65, but we also have in our code that if you're industrial use next to
That
residential
doesn't
use,
speak for
you're
it.
limited to 55 decibels. So it's just an anomaly in our code. I just need public to be aware that we allow loud activities until 11 o'clock.
And we deal with it accordingly.
Yes.
All right,
Okay,
so you're good with that.
that's fine.
Go ahead.
Um, Well,
But
do you have any more discussion?
on,
We need to open, I think, public.
Just interject, that was kind of a back and forth discussion with staff after their presentation. I don't know if the applicant has anything further that they want to add on conditional use. Now you can open it up for public comment.
public comment? Oh, okay.
Linda Mahoney, 131 North Gulfstream.
And you were sworn in before.
I was. I'm pleased to see some of the changes and the conditions that you put on the project. I do want to point out that events in Bryant Park, our public park, city park, have to end by 10 p.m. in consideration of the residential neighborhood. So there is just nothing outdoors in our public park after 10 p.m. The sound is going to travel from that rooftop in a way that you will not understand until it happens. And since I know most of you don't live quite so close, it will not affect you. Some of us purchased before these things happen. Some of us have been here long before someone decided to make this city urban.
That's why they call it a city.
No, actually, it's not. The state has no requirements on cities. You can call yourself anything you want, city, town, village, hamlet. It has no meaning in the state of Florida. You are going to get more complaints, and they're going to be constant. And why make people in the area unhappy from the get-go with noise coming from the roof? And we were told at the Paracove meeting in response to my question that the rooftop activity would be totally enclosed, not open, so that we would not have to worry about noise. The idea of doing a parking study or whatever 6 months after the Gulfstream opens will be before the second hotel is open. So you don't really know what full capacity is going to mean. And you won't really know whether you're going to need that extra level at that point. You'll know when both are open, but the garage will already have been built, because the garage is coming before the second hotel, according according to the phasing I saw on the plan. So, those are my comments on the conditional use. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other comments?
I think we have more from the public.
I turned away.
I'm still here, still up. Wes Bachman, 241 Columbia Drive. And I think you have to realize that the current condition is unusual because the hotel has been vacant for 10 years, so you really don't have a going concern or an operation to judge and know what the baseline is, essentially, other than not having the hotel open at all. So I think that's probably giving you a little concern, but I think it's okay for the public purpose in terms of establishing a hotel to be all right with a little traffic congestion. I like the idea of coming in with a traffic study once it's up and running. And there are other alternatives other than adding another parking deck to the garage. For example, employees could be off-site and bussed in. The beach at night is not heavily parked, but could make a good employee parking lot, for example, for the hotel. That's possible. So there are some other solutions. And I did some research, and there is a lot of mention of activity on the roof during the heyday of the hotel. They used it as an assembly area. So just let me throw that in.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, let's, oh, I'm sorry.
Joanne Golden, 502 North Pond. Sorry you're up so late. Everybody's
We're
still
done,
awake,
actually.
which is amazing. I have a problem that nobody's mentioned the rooftop of the Gulfstream and the fact that there is there's shade, places for shade up there. There's obviously rooftop activities that'll happen on top of the Gulfstream, and it is a non-conforming building, and I don't know if that changes the non-conformingness of it, to have a rooftop that's used for entertainment on top of the building. Nobody's mentioned it. They have a 4-foot wall that seemed a little bit dangerous to me, considering that other people and students have managed to fall off buildings a little lower than that and kill themselves. So I don't know why it hasn't been brought up, if it's been nixed from the plan or what, but it was on the plans I saw this morning. And I would like to say that it would be not a good thing for the neighborhood to have stuff going on in that neighborhood. Sound carries quite far, and it'll be everywhere. So I don't know why it hasn't been brought up, or if it was just nixed before. So please let us know about what's going on.
Great.
You can speak.
Greg Rice, and I still live at 511 Lucerne. And I also believe a meeting should end on the same day it begins, so I'll try to keep it brief. Like I said, I live in the Lucerne, and of course that's right in the middle of town. Things change constantly downtown. As we know, the cottage has been closed now for a couple of years. It seems like that now South Shore is closed. So the sound that was being generated there a couple of years ago, and comments and complaints that new people moving into the building were making to the building manager was something that he had to deal with on a daily basis. And because this hotel's been closed for so long, any kind of noise is going to create some concern, and William's going to get calls, and the city manager's going to get called, and the elected are going to get calls, but in time that's going to happen. We all have to keep in mind that we all want to be good neighbors, and certainly I learned a long time ago, and for 20 years I lived out of a suitcase traveling 4 days a week. I learned early in my career that if you want a southern address and a northern income, you better learn to travel, and I have done that, and I do it quite well. But most hotels have to be conscious of their guests too, and they're not gonna let sound deter keeping people up in the building. They're gonna get calls downstairs that they can't sleep because business travelers and all that are gonna be complaining. So without a successful business environment and a thriving downtown, you have no city. You just have a bunch of neighborhoods, and we are a city, where, however you wanna define that term, city. So we have to be conscious of this, but I don't think that a properly managed hotel, and I've slept in more places than George Washington has, those kind of concerns have got to be paramount to a good property manager and hotel manager.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Go ahead.
I have to say that I'm still on the fence on the hours of operation for the exterior uses. I don't think it should be, grossly restricted, but, William, what are the limits of the public park? Are they indeed 10 p.m.?
I am not prepared to answer that question. I'd have to look into it. I can try to find it on the website now,
But this isn't a public park.
No, it's not a public park, it is a private business. I'm just exterior noise is difficult, it's a difficult issue. It does abut, it does abut a condo directly, and that's my concern, is that the condo to the south and that type of late night activity on the annex within 10 feet, 20 feet of a condo. Of an existing building, and that is a new structure, and so you can feel free to argue with me, Monty.
You know me. First of all, I want to clarify something that Ms. Golden mentioned. First of all, if you look at historical records, there was always activities on the rooftop level. It was designed for use, it was used, it's in articles, if you want to look at articles that are 50 years and beyond. It was there before any of us were there. So it's an existing use, it's a vested use, it's a use that was part of this building, it's part of the character of the building. That being said, we are obliged to follow the code, and the code already has protections for outdoor uses, whether it's a park or not a park. I think the chair's point is correct. This is a private piece of property. It currently is owned by a private property owner. And today, if he wanted to renovate and reopen the Gulfstream as a use and use the roof as it had been almost 100 years ago, he could do that. And there's really nothing you can do. I have to say that your code protects you. 65 decibels is very low. I mean, I could be standing outside their window talking in this tone, and I might go over 65. So,